Friendo Steve here, and welcome back to the Hey, Friendo Steve here, welcome back to the Friendoville channel. Oh man, this is going to be interesting to see if I can get through this one, Tim.
We're already off the rails.
It's already off the rails. I had to do my intro 2 times. This is the Four Lights podcast, back with another Picard review, and as always, I'm joined by Tim. Tim, just take it away. Just start doing it.
Hi, everybody. I do want to say that to kick off the show, we do have an awesome Teesprings channel. I'm actually wearing my wife's shirt. Yes, I can fit my wife's clothes. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, we got this in today, and it's a nice fabric. I'm always kind of a stickler for the brittle fabric. I love it. So definitely go out, get your Four Lights shirt. No going back, man.
Yeah, dude. For the Teespring link is in the description. I got my shirt in. I just have not washed it yet. And I have to wash my shirts before I wear them.
So, personal question. Does Lacey, wear your shirts after you get done wearing them throughout the day, like a night shirt?
Yeah. So, it's not like an automatic thing. She usually wears one of my shirts to bed, but it's not necessarily one I've worn that day. Usually she actually, she'll just grab one of my clean shirts, I think.
Sometimes it's not, if I'm outside really, really gross, I throw it right in the hamper. I don't even give it to her. But sometimes if we were just out on the town and she wants something that smells like me, and she just tosses it on and that's it. I mean, so this is probably going to be, we're going to wear this to dinner as long as I don't get anything on it. And she'll probably rock it tonight. So I'm wearing it before she does.
Spread the word, man. Spread the word. The Teespring link is in the description. We're here to talk about Picard, Season 1, Episode 3. I believe it was called The End is the Beginning.
Yes.
And that's where, just in general, that's where the episode, the episode actually began in the way beginning. So I guess we could talk about what that title meant. But just on the whole, you mentioned when you first saw it, I just watched it today. You watched it last night. What was your impression on the episode? You were a fan, weren't you?
I was a fan. I really liked how it finally tied stuff together. Episode 2 was kind of a staller episode. There's a lot of, I don't know, we'll get into it. There's a lot of, hints of where it's leading to. We see Picard finally, moving his butt. A lot of things like that, which is really, really good. It pushes the story forward. Now, the interesting thing, we talked about this. We were wrong in the first episode, and I am man enough to say I was wrong. The first 3 episodes are directed by the same individual, and somebody had mentioned when they were talking with the producers of the show that each director is possibly going to tell their own story. So this seemed like the end of the first act, like you had said. It was really well done. It felt like it was, you had a beginning, middle, and end, and then we move on to the next chapter. So it was very, very well done in that aspect.
And even when you look at, sorry, not to cut you off, even when you look at coming up next week on Picard, they're shifting to either recruiting whoever that Vulcan guy is. And you've got a completely new locale, new settings. We're going to be away from Earth, away from all that stuff. It does seem like, Act 1 is done and we're moving on to, the next big chunk of story.
Which is very, very good. So I mentioned this before, another friendo in the comments, which we do read, by the way, mentioned he liked my Mass Effect comment of the Omni tool. Well, I got another Mass Effect comment. Is that if you've ever played the games, they have the first chapter of your character gathering all the troops, and they're all motivations for why they joined Shepard and things like that. That's what this felt like. It was Picard gathering the troops, very much origin story for a big ensemble. The original episode of TNG, it's from almost Riker's perspective of joining on the Enterprise, and that's it. Everybody else is almost assembled. Where this is, we only know a few people. They're assembling everybody. Everybody has their own reasons for joining or not joining. Some for money, some for scientific purposes. I like that reason. All the pieces fell together. Let's go on an adventure. And I liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I thought the episode was really good. I thought there were a couple clunky bits of character direction. Specifically with the Raffi character, which I've heard. So I like to visit the Picard Reddit page. And
are you sure it's not the Discord page?
What's that?
Discord nerd.
No, not the Discord. The Reddit. probably more nerdy, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of interesting fan theories that we'll sort of go over. But a lot of people were also talking about. Hold on a second, because here comes one of my the character of Raffi and maybe some overacting that was perceived. And I hate to boil. There's a story that always tickled me when it comes to the idea of an actor being overacting or whatever. Remember the movie Doctor Strangelove, the Stanley Kubrick movie?
Oh, yep.
Okay. So
you're talking about the one scene where he was told to or he hammed it up really bad.
George C. Scott
in the movie.
Yeah, George C. Scott's entire performance is just over the top in that movie, and that was because every single time, for every single take, he would play it completely normal because he didn't want to go over the top. And Kubrick, to fool him, would just be like, okay, well, let's just do it one time this way. I won't use it. I just want to see what it looks like. And then he used every single take that was over the top. That's what we got. And so, like, this could be an instance of the director requesting the character to play it that way. Raffi's a very interesting character because the episode actually opens up. We can just sort of launch into it. The episode opens up 14 years prior. And we're at Starfleet headquarters. Well, I mean, the first actual shot we get, I think, is of Mars on fire.
They did the flashback for what happened last time on Picard.
They did like a little flashback thing, yeah. And then we're at Starfleet headquarters. We're in like a little courtyard outside of the entrance. And Picard is leaving the building. He's just had his meeting with Starfleet Command, and Raffi is waiting outside. He, at this point, is a 4-pip admiral, I believe, and she is either a commander or lieutenant commander. I couldn't read if it was a hollow pip or not. But we did get to see the Starfleet uniforms of 14 years ago. Those look great. Those look really cool.
It's also the same ones that are in the comic that you'll be reading.
Okay. That's I think I saw that. I peeped like the first 2 pages of it, so that makes sense.
And they de-aged Patrick Stewart a smidgen. Not as bad as X-Men 3, because that was just garbage. But yeah. They de-aged him a little bit. You could still tell it was still old man with the crow's feet in the eyes, but they did a really good job. And the scene was played out. But when she's talking to him, it's interesting. She kind of wants to know what happened in there, and the problem is that she calls him JL. Would Riker ever call Picard JL?
So I'll counter this one. I actually
I'm sorry.
So for me, here's the thing. There's a couple things at play here. I'll defend this a little bit. Okay. I think my main thing is that the nickname, I'm not necessarily anti the nickname, her using a nickname. JL is such an awkward thing that rolls off the tongue. This is one thing that I actually kind of liked about this, about her sense of familiarity with him, is that we're so used to seeing Picard in Next Generation and how he interacts with his crew. And what do we get in the very last episode of Next Generation is him coming in, sitting down at the poker table and saying, I should have done this a long time ago. He's realized that keeping the crew at bay on a personal level probably isn't the way, like there's a form of regret that he's done that. And you get the sense that after that, he's opening up a little bit. And this
so you think it's him loosening his tie a little bit.
This is the natural, and on top of that, he's getting older. Since he's an admiral and not a captain, he will have settled down a bit more. He's not out in the stars, like on edge all the time because of God knows what's going to happen. And so he's a little older, and he probably developed over the previous 6 years, which is the last time we had seen him, because 2379 was when Nemesis took place, and this was in 2385. And so I like the idea that in this span of time, he has developed a relationship with, at least one other person, maybe a whole nother cast of characters, that he's let himself become a bit more vulnerable. He's let himself open up a little bit more. And so, this person in his life, he's a high-ranking admiral and she's a commander or lieutenant commander. and she's using this, familiar term, this JL, this nickname for him.
You talked me into it, but you're right. It is a very awkward nickname. So
I didn't have a big problem with. I didn't have a big problem with, and in fact, because I was like, I saw people on Reddit discuss that point of view, and I was like, I didn't have a problem with it, but I can't. My main thing was I like that we didn't get to see that part of the story, and that he has changed. That right there is a cue in that he has changed since then. And I like that it's not like just exposition. Oh, Picard got really, Picard let go and he got soft in his old age. We didn't have to hear that because we got that little bit of relationship. And so I liked it. The nickname, and they had her say it endlessly, like over and over again. I thought some of the dialogue in that scene beyond the nickname, I thought was just a little bit on the clunky side. It didn't really feel all that natural.
Yeah, and she was... Do we just want to kind of speed through this part a little bit? Because...
Say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, because... Well, I was going to kind of just run through it. She's like, what happened in there? And she's like, well, are they going to go with their plan? And he goes, well, no, I gave him an ultimatum. Either you go with our new plan or I quit. And then she's like, well, why don't we use synths? And she's like, all synths have been outlawed. And she's like, oh, there's just a Romulan cover-up or something. And basically she goes, well, what did they take the ultimatum or did you quit? And he goes, I quit. And then she gets really indignant going, oh my goodness, not only have you put your career on the line, you also put my career on the line. And she kind of throws it back at him. And then she gets like an email saying, oh, your presence is requested. And she goes, yeah, I'm going to get canned. So she gets really defensive about it and thinks it's unfortunate because she's like, oh, what about those poor people? Wait, what about me?
That was my main issue with it. And not just the dialogue, because the dialogue itself was kind of clunky, but... The character from the only scene that I actually really appreciated Raffi was the end, because I think when we see her on the bridge of that ship, something that she mentions I think is going to come back to bite them in the ass. But I thought that scene was actually played pretty decently, but the character itself is just written not in the most flattering way. And it's like, no. On one hand, I'm totally willing to open up to the idea that there's a person who is fallible, is maybe emotional,
old, bitter, I
mean, I would assume that in that scene from 14 years prior, she's probably around like 35 years old or so, if we're to suppose that maybe she's 50 when we meet her for the first time in the present day for Picard. But yeah, she does, this is a huge thing where they're trying to get hundreds of millions of people, and he's saying, I've literally done everything I could. My resignation was the last thing I could pull. Something's going on. And she's saying something fishy is going on here. And then, she says, and then I'm getting fired. And it's revealed later on that, from that moment on, it was all downhill. And she ended up living in a trailer, smoking weed all day, basically.
Smoking weed. Watching James T. Kirk and a Gorgon fighting in the background,
Yeah, it was. So apparently that's where it was filmed, wasn't it? Yeah. I had to look up the because it says what is the name of the location?
I didn't.
Something Rock. I forget what it was.
Yeah, and it's been used in several Star Trek episodes throughout. The years,
that's not surprising.
So. Yeah.
It's funny because right next to it, when I typed in the location, right next to it is like this thing called the Star Trek, I don't know, it's like the Star Trek landmark site or something like that. I'm like, well, that's actually really funny.
Have you seen the movie Fanboys?
No, I never did.
Okay, so a bunch of Star Wars guys goes and they actually go through Iowa and they go to the birthplace of James T. Kirk, and they kind of crash this ceremony of like these two foam monuments of Kirk and Khan, and they totally don't look like him. Like, oh yeah, well, we couldn't get the rights to them, but that's okay. So that's whenever you hear monuments, and it's whenever I hear monuments being made for Star Trek, that's all I can think of is a bunch of really Star Wars guys just totally going in and having a big fight with Trekkies. It's hilarious. I always meant
to check that film out because I heard decent things about it.
I'll have to send it to you. It's pretty good. But anyway.
Yeah. So, anyways, she goes back in there. So, yeah, kind of an inauspicious sort of debut for Raffi in terms of her backstory, because it wasn't really like Picard did anything to incite like, her wrath or any sort of like misunderstanding. It was, I just put everything I had out there, and she's like, great, now I'm fired too. So
she got caught in the crossfires of it. So
yeah. So in any event,
roll credits and on to the next scene.
So on to the next scene. We're back with Raffi in the present day, near where Kirk and the Gorn were fighting. And she's drinking his wine, giving a lot of static. They like make a very pointed, they very clearly make it very conspicuous rather, that she like grabs a little piece of what she calls snake leaf. Is that what it was?
Something like that.
Puts it like in a vape pen and smokes it.
Which I thought we would have been a little bit past that, because also the captain later on is having a cigar. There's been no other smoking except for aliens in Star Trek. This is the first time, I think, in all of Trek, unless it's a ceremonial thing, it's the first time I think we've seen humans do recreational drugs.
Yeah, I mean, look, my thing is this. They're going to... The way they've done it so far has been a bit jarring. But you have to understand what my point of view is, understanding the constraints of syndicated television in the 90s, showing people smoking. I mean, I don't know if that's probably a bigger deal today than it is back then.
Yeah,
maybe
it really is.
But I understand that if you want to tell stories that have a bit more drama, a bit more tension, to the degree that modern audiences might expect, I'm sort of trying to give this some benefit of the doubt, I guess. And they have plans to make these Star Trek series just one after another.
Yeah. And there might be some correlation between Discovery and this episode, so we'll get into that eventually. But yeah, I understand modernizing it, making it feels like one jointed universe, a typical feel and vibe and flow. It's just, it is a little weird seeing, like we talked about, the F-bomb is in the official Star Trek canon now that actually is being used in the future. That's a good joke, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
Smoking is still around. We know alcohol is heavily used because they talked about synthahol, and there's some other stuff like that. So there will be vices, there will be things like that. But you're right, it is jarring when you see these characters that are, there were... I guess it makes sense, though. Like, some of them are washed-up Starfleet individuals, so what are they doing? They're sitting back, smoking and drinking. It kind of makes sense.
Did Kirk or Bones ever light up a cigar? I mean, I know they drank in the original movies. Did they ever light up a cigar in the original movies? I don't remember.
I don't think so. Not that I know of.
I don't think they did either, but I don't know. I know there was a scene. I'll have to go back and look at that scene from Star Trek 3 when they're in a bar. Or I think when Sulu's in a bar. Somebody's in a bar.
I think, didn't Bones give him a bottle of Romulan ale? And Kirk is like, this is illegal. And he goes, it's good for you, though. Doctor's prescription.
Yeah. So I don't know. It is jarring, but I think it's one of those things where it'll be kind of jarring right now, and then we'll just sort of get over it,
Yeah.
Everybody raised the shitstorm when Tilly cursed in Discovery, and that was the first time we were like, oh my God, she just said F, that was weird. That was crazy. So, I don't know.
But anyway, she's sitting there packing her pipe and smoking and having a big glass of wine of... that Picard brought her from the previous episode.
Yeah, and she starts giving him sort of a guilt trip, doesn't she? She's like, I saw you on TV, and he was like, yeah, that was a disaster. So she said, can I offer you some advice? Next time, maybe don't tell the the vice admiral, the admiral in charge of whatever, your plans before you do them, before you go on your top secret mission. She's like, I don't remember you being so chatty before. I saw that interview you gave, and he was like, yeah, it was terrible. It was a mess. And so she's like, I saw you there sitting in your nice heirloom furniture, in your nice chateau, living the life, and I'm here in my hovel, and it's been one long slide into humiliation and rage over the past 14 years, and you haven't even called to say hi. And he really doesn't have a response. Hard. And that is kind of rough. That's rough.
A little hard. Yeah. I do have one question, though. So we're led to believe that mankind is in a virtual peace utopia, not, bombs flying after World War III, according to canon. Everybody, for the most part, has a replicator, right? And she's like, oh, I basically live in a trailer out in the middle of nowhere. couldn't she just like start replicating parts of a house and just make it better? If you had a replicator and a place to live and a couple other nice things.
I wonder if the.
And Picard has this huge vineyard, and like what's the hierarchy for like how people live almost?
I wonder if the standard of status is different. Okay, so she had, you can argue that, let's say she was 35 back in 14 years ago. She's already a commander. That's actually pretty, it's either impressive or normal. I mean, depending on what your standard is. Like Riker was probably around 35 when we met him in Next Generation, and he was a commander. And he was a fast track guy. Like, he was on his way up. He just sort of stayed there, but like he had already had a command offered at that point. And so you got to think maybe her career was on the rise, and this goes down, and maybe they I mean, if they don't literally fire her from Starfleet, I don't know if they would demote her, but they might stick her on some crap-ass vessel captained by, Barclay or something like that.
Like what they did with Scotty in 2009. They just shove him off into an ice planet.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe it's not necessarily, because, like, she has her trailer. She's got, like, a replicator. She's obviously healthy. It's the standard of what success is. I had a great career, and now I don't even feel good showing my face anywhere because of the humiliation that I've experienced.
Yeah, because she did seem like a kind of a career individual too, so I understand that. It seemed very petty compared to some standards, but I guess in the future, if everybody's relatively good and all you have is status quo, and that or you're standing in Starfleet or wherever you're sitting at, and if you lost it, I mean, that could be in theory losing everything. So I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's like, she's not going to be homeless, and she's not going to starve, and she's not going to not going to lose her health care.
They gave her a storage container, a storage crate, like a shipping crate with a mini holodeck and a replicator. Go have fun. That's all you need.
Exactly. It's like, well, everybody has this. Every bum has this. I want a chateau. So I mean, one of my issues though is, because I'm not defending the writing of this character, because I think one thing about the actor, I think her name is Michelle Hurd, I think. One of the things about the actor is that she has a natural confidence and strength just on her face. Yeah. And for her to sort of be cowering to him, it just didn't fit. Well. It didn't fit. And it was like, man, if I've got this much, and I understand the relationship it felt a bit on the father-daughter side, maybe more from her perspective.
I think it's almost like your family best friend, so you call him Uncle Ricky, but you give him a nickname, sort of a thing. You're really close with him. But I will say this: we're getting into this pretty deep. We're nitpicking something that's it kind of a blatant thing, but this is like the worst part of the whole episode, in my opinion.
I agree. It didn't really feel like a fit. It seemed like it would have fit more, and maybe it would have been too. It would have been too obvious or too cliched, and maybe that's why they didn't go this route. If she wasn't so emotional with him, if she was more dismissive of him, like, I'm busy, what do you want?
Unless wine just makes her cry more, because
that's a good point. She was drinking a lot.
She was drinking a lot, and she came out with a gun. She's like, "What do you want?" She was packing heat. Mm-hmm. So it just, it was. Anyway, let's move on. We could talk about this all day, but it.
Yeah, it didn't sit great with me. But my thing is, I honestly believe that probably within the next couple episodes, by the end of first season, I think we'll come around to Raffi quite a bit. I really like just what the actress brings in general, just with her general charisma, and I think that with more, I mentioned this in our little group chat. Well, you remember literally the first episode we met Data? He was smiling, and it was weird, and he came off like a psychopath. So sometimes these things take. I could not stand Nerys, Kira. On Deep Space Nine, through like the first 3 seasons, I couldn't stand her. So
yeah, and they'll write characters differently to adjust. Like just even go back to The Office. Even Michael Scott, he's one of the most beloved characters. First season, he's a terrible human being.
Oh, he is unbearable.
They make him so much, a lot more heart and everything else. So she'll fit her groove. They'll write her to make her better. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll come around. So, anyways, she says, "I got you So yeah." Let's see. She also says, there's a mess. She leaves the table. He follows. We're back on the Romulan Borg cube, and we see Hugh for the first time in forever. I'm not sure if I was just a casual fan. I don't think I would have known. I would have been like, why does he look familiar? And maybe I would have done some research. And later on, she finally mentions Hugh. But it's so under her breath. I'm not sure I would have pointed out. I would have gotten it there either.
He has some of the tiny little dermal implants that 7 of 9 has, but then even down to the makeup, like where his big eye one.
I know. All the clues are there. Everything's there.
It is. It's really, really well done. Although he is kind of awkward, but I think that's part of the way his character's kind of played. Because we're back and he walks up to brain fart. Soji, and he goes, "Oh, you're such a prestigious individual. I can't believe you've done this." And at first you're like, "Oh, she's in trouble." Like, no, you're actually being comforting to these reclaimed individuals. That's such a wonderful thing. You're above and beyond what I've ever expected. And so they kind of get to talking about, where they're going with the process. And he goes, "Well, let's see what you got. Let's, you talked about talking, because I believe this individual was Romulan, right? That she was talking to.
Yeah.
The reclaiming, and she spoke Romulan, and he's like, "Well, I've read some of your papers saying that if you talk to the species' native language, it can help them even when they're unconscious." And he's like, "Well, maybe there's more to you than meets the eye. I want to go show you something."
Yeah, so he arranges an interview with somebody named Ramda, who is an ex-B, an ex-Borg, and a Romulan wanted that. And she mentions that Ramda was a historian who specialized in Romulan myth. Which is interesting stuff. And Hugh is like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll set up the interview. I like you. You're good stuff." And they both have a mutual distrust for what the Romulans are up to there. Mm-hmm. But it kind of makes me wonder, like, where has Hugh been this whole time, and how did he get hooked up with the Romulans? That's a really interesting story right there.
Because last time we saw, he was with Data's brother, right? And with those other... Right?
Yeah, he was going to lead the reclaimed Borg, into their own society. Own sect.
And then the only other thing I could think of that even remotely relates to it is that the DS9 episode of where when the Borg dream, when they're not really connected, they have that utopia that they're kind of in with. So I'm wondering if that's ever brought into play for the reclaimed individuals that Hugh was with, or not reclaimed, but the individuals that Hugh was with. And then eventually did they get picked up by the Romulans, and the Romulans said, "Hey, we can remove your facial prosthetics and we'll help you." I mean, there's going to be a whole backstory that probably won't be told. We can kind of assume, or be told in comic form or something. But there's kind of a big leap from where he was to where he is now, but he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, no, he's doing great. He's like, we find out he's like the executive director of whatever this thing is, of the Romulan Reclamation Project. So we're back with Picard and Raffi. He's apologizing to her. She's still drinking. And he's like, "Hey, listen, man, the Tal Shiar, the Romulans, they're on Earth. They've got some assassins there." And he's like, "I remember you thought there was a connection there." And she was like, "Yeah, back when, the whole Mars attack thing, I have hard evidence there was a connection there between the Romulans and the Federation. And, they're the ones that basically saying the Mars attack was an inside job." And she tells him, "You need to leave. I'm not going to go down this hole with you again. By the way, I got you a pilot. He's really good. He's going to contact you, but you need to go now." And he's like, "Okay." And there's this, you sort of figure, and especially later with what happens, he's maybe seen this side of her before. He knows when to back off because he trusts, I planted this seed. I know she's not going to be able to resist it.
I think as soon as he said Romulan spies are on Earth, he had her. And then he's like, got a little bit of the bubbly here, too.
Yeah.
Got a little libbity-bibbity for you.
Libbity-bibbity. So after that, we're at the Daystrom Institute, but it's like a park nearby. Dr. Girardi is in the park enjoying some music and, I guess, lunch or whatever. Commodore O shows up rocking some Ray-Bans, man.
Okay. When's the only time we've seen individuals wear glasses or sunglasses?
Yeah, I know. The eye-sensitive mirror universe people, that's a possibility.
That's the only time we've seen it, because otherwise you think they have like the automatic adjusting contacts or something.
They were so conspicuous. It was like, did she forget to take these off before they started filming?
She was rocking these pointy Men in Black style sunglasses in her Starfleet outfit.
Yeah.
Think, what in the
and
world?
like they made her ears literally just go out the side of her head.
Yeah, because her hair pokes out behind it, and it's so... I don't make fun of people's ears, but I'm like, satellite dishes, man. I'm just like, it's so the most awkward looking individual.
I'm like, are you Cloder Ferengi or something? What's going on here?
It was almost Scooby-Doo-esque where she goes, aha, I'm the real villain. That's how bad it was. But
yeah.
Anyway.
I'm like, sunglasses? That's weird. Anyways.
Yeah, so she says, hey, what was the conversation? We know Picard came to see you. What was the conversation? And she's like, and it cuts.
Yeah. And it cuts to Hugh and Soji going to see Ramda. She's got these things that look like tarot cards she's placing in order on the...
But they're diamond-shaped. And
Yeah. And you sort of look around, and there's like a lot of former Borg that are Romulans, and they have a really hard time adjusting to coming back to like normal. And so they're all messed up. They're all like in there, fidgeting with stuff and whatnot. So they meet, but then we're back on Raffi's trailer. Go ahead, sorry.
When her and Hugh comes in, she goes, "Oh, there's this many," and he goes, "Yeah." This leads into something else, but he goes, "Yeah, these are the only known Borg Romulans."
Yeah.
That I'll get into a theory about that later, but yeah, that's when he coming in and she sits down, tries to introduce herself, and then, but yeah, so this group that's here or on this cube are the only known Romulan Borg. So
yeah,
cuts back to Raffi's.
And here we start to sort of go back and forth a little bit. Back on Raffi's trailer, it's nighttime, and she's got her little iPad out. She's doing some research. What's that?
Yeah, she's Googling.
Yeah, she's Googling stuff, exactly. And then Picard interrupts her, like Tim FaceTime me at all hours of the day. All of a sudden, she's like, what? And he's like, You're researching, aren't you? I'm sending everything you have about Brad Maddox, about Bruce Maddox, and here. And she's like, I'm not doing anything. And then she she gets him along.
Picard just like, I sent this to you. Bye. Click.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
he's like, I know you're looking at it. Here's some more information to research.
Exactly. So he understands that he's dropped the seed, and that's happening. After that, we have Picard beaming up to Rios's ship for the first time. He is met by who we eventually find out is Cristobal Rios's emergency medical hologram, who is a British version of Cristobal Rios.
I have a theory about that. I have two theories.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm full of theories. It's either a twin brother that he lost, so he wants somebody to help guide him to remember him. Or he mentions, like, he doesn't, after Picard leaves, he goes, I don't want to have another captain's brain smeared on my bulkhead. I think it might be like an EMH that his old captain left him, be like, if something happens to me, this needs to be your conscience. This is a specialty. I hope they give the EMH a better backstory that goes along with him.
I like your idea about the twin, but I'm gonna say it's probably not, but it might be something kind of like that. I think it's actually both your theories sort of combined into one. I'll tell you what I think it is now. Okay. So the EMH has a British accent. The emergency navigational hologram has an Irish accent. They're very distinct, and I think, and Cristobal himself. It has slight, if I'm not mistaken, it's like a slight Spanish accent, but it's very, very slight.
He's just all over Europe,
Yeah, well, his name is Cristobal, so anyways. And
the one who is in charge of the weapons is very German.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty good, Tim. That's good. The emergency security hologram? Yeah, it's a German guy.
Last name is Baumgartner. I'm original last name, so I'm very German, so I can get away with it.
Okay, fair enough. That's pretty funny, actually. So, what if the incident with his captain resulted in him not wanting to have proper crewmates anymore or getting close to anybody, and that's why, number one, he's just a pilot for hire, and number two, you don't really get close to your people then, and number two, instead of coming up with an EMH that looks like you, or I'm sorry, that looks like somebody else that you can possibly get attached to, you just turn it into yourself. And then on top of that, there's the metaphor of that Wayne had mentioned that I thought he articulated decently for Wayne. And he said it's like his different, what did he say? Yeah, they're like his internal dialogue incarnate, which is how they start acting, basically.
We also know that between Jory and Barclay, we don't want to replicate or make people that were alive or are alive, because that can always go down a weird, bad route. So.
Yeah, right, yeah. So I'm sure they'll explain why he's got. I'm sure it'll probably just be a conversation. Somebody like, I will almost guarantee it's going to be Girardi asking him, "Why are these people look? Why do they all look like you?" And maybe he'll give like a flip answer like, "Well, it's my ship, so I want to make sure it's represented by me."
But they all seem to, it's not the typical EMH with the doctor with the bad bedside manner. They want what's best for him, and the one was just like, well, hey, maybe this is Jean-Luc Picard here,
Yeah.
So there's something more behind it. There really has
they've definitely evolved, seemingly not all the way to like the sentience that the Doctor from Voyager has, but quite a bit more than his original programming. This is several steps past that.
Pretty custom, it seems like.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So, I mean, and you got to figure at that point, you can probably just customize them however you want,
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I want a bunch of... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to move on, but go ahead.
I really like the casting of Rios. I thought that when I first saw him in the trailers, I was like, oh, he's going to be like this one-dimensional Han Solo type. But I thought that the actor himself took some scenes that were actually kind of goofy, like the meeting with Picard where he's got a giant shard sticking out of his shoulder. That was a goofy scene that I thought the character kind of underplayed the actor. What's that?
Yeah, puffing on a stogie.
Yeah, I thought the actor underplayed it enough that it didn't translate as too goofy. It didn't get there.
It didn't, because he's sitting there like, well, kind of, hey, I heard you need a pilot, and he's sitting back, and the EMH is trying to fix everything underneath, and he pulls the shard out, and like, oh, time to fix you up, but he wants the scar. I think is really what it seems like, and there's a scene where he's like, well, take a seat, and he's sitting in the pilot's chair. But then Picard kind of looks at the captain's chair and then walks over to navigation. It was kind of a neat little like.
No, it was a none too subtle like, oh man, that's the captain's chair right there. Yeah.
And so he's kind of like, I heard you need a pilot, and Picard's trying to feel him out, asking some nudge questions, and then all of a sudden. He goes, I really know who you are. I kind of know your backstory. You used to be, a pilot for a big freighter. And he goes, well, that freighter never really existed. But Picard has that, high level, access to Starfleet stuff. And he basically goes, you reek of Starfleet. Everything in this back is immaculate. Starfleet order. He goes, you breathe, drink, sleep. Starfleet, what happened? What made you leave? And obviously, so he's looking for people that have the training and the demeanor and the
disposition.
Yeah, the disposition for Starfleet, but maybe don't trust them necessarily because something made you leave Starfleet, and I need somebody that maybe doesn't trust Starfleet that's willing to and the captain's like, are we going to do anything illegal? He goes, I don't know what I'm doing is illegal or not. I don't talk with lawyers.
Yeah, so. I don't talk with lawyers before I do something that needs to be done. And he's like, well, I don't talk to lawyers at all. The bit with the EMH with the scar. Part of me wonders if it's, man, this guy is. I'm sitting down with Jean-Luc Picard. I'm not gonna show. I'm gonna be like the toughest guy in front of him because he doesn't even let the EMH use the dermal regenerator on him. He's like, oh, this scar's right here. I'm a cool guy, and I got Picard right here who can just watch it all.
I really think, though, that he might be a guy that's like, I'm not. He's like, it looks like you have some. What happened there? And he goes, oh, I'm still alive. So I think it's a matter of maybe he is kind of like scars show his story. They could regenerate it, make it normal, but he's like, tell us what happened.
Yeah. That's a definitely possibility. It's just kind of gross because he just puts he's got like all that blood there, and he puts on his sweater, and it's just gonna stick. Disgusting.
Oh yeah, and it scabs over and you peel it up like.
Yeah, like the whole time I'm just sitting there thinking that he's got that sweater on and it's just bugging the crap out. It's probably itches.
Oh. Or like when you scrape your knee on your jeans or something riding a bike, and then you get home and you got to peel the.
It peels off.
Oh yeah, oof.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Anyway.
So, anyways, yeah, like you mentioned, their entire conversation was really good, and Rios punctuates it by the bit in the trailer we saw. Where he says, "I heard you. I've been told you're a speech maker." And he said, "Let me warn you, man. Hire me or don't. Just don't try to get in my head." Again, I think he's sort of playing the tough guy routine with Picard, because we later see his EM8 or his the other ENH, the other hologram, saying, "Man, you're sitting here with Jean-Luc Picard. This guy is this, that, and the other. This is pretty cool." And he's like, "No, I don't want another captain. I saw his brains explode in front of me. It was terrible." Where deep down he's probably geeking out big time. He knows exactly
he's
what
nerding out. Just like me doing this right here. I'm just like, hey, I watched these guys for a couple of years. Now I'm doing a podcast with them.
Exactly. You're like Rios, man.
Just
anyway. Let's see here. Raffi is we're back with Raffi, and she's digging through all the code and stuff. And then she finds out that Maddox is on something called Free Cloud. What do you think Free Cloud is, man?
I think it's a place where everybody goes smoke pot I bet you it's probably I think it's an area where probably they have free thinkers. People can go and work on experiments that they typically couldn't. That doesn't quite have the morality system. Is it a planet, a space station? What is it? Probably a little bit of both, or like it's in some sort of weird nebula, like it's meant to be hidden from. Like a nebula that can't be scanned normally, and then that's where everybody goes and does all their secret underground experiments of, putting a Romulan on a Vulcan's head, vice versa. Who knows what they're doing.
It'd be rad if they did that, man. Heck yeah. Let's combine a Klingon with the Ferengi and see what we get.
It's like a Vulcan with a Klingon bobblehead, I don't know.
Right, exactly.
I think it's something like it implies that they're trying to break beyond the limits of what the morality of Starfleet is.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. It's probably a place free of restrictions, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's like in a nebula. That's a good one. You can't scan it, can't find it. No, those are all good possibilities right there. After that, we are back in, and I sort of mentioned this. An Irish-speaking version or an Irish-accented version of Rios, the emergency navigational hologram, is chatting up Rios. I guess he just finished up some repairs or whatever. And that's where we learn, like I mentioned, that on Rios's would seem to be his final Starfleet mission, his captain was killed in front of him, brains all over the bulkhead, and he's like, I don't want friends anymore. And curious to know what, and like you said, Picard's got that Starfleet access. Maybe he knows about this incident, why it was scrubbed from history. I'm sure we'll find that out eventually.
Yep.
Back at the chateau, Picard is basically saying his goodbye to Laris, saying, "I'm gonna miss it here. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss Jovan. I'm gonna miss the dog." For 14 years, I've tried to make this place home, but I've always wanted to be in the stars. And
he keeps on looking up with that long. Yeah. There's a couple of shots where he just kind of looks up like that's where I should be, but
yeah. At this point, we start jumping around a little bit. I think this is what I was referencing earlier with Soji talking to Ramda about her cards. She has like an interesting mini ritual that happens where I guess most Romulan houses have a false front door, and you have to get access from the rear entry, which is like a real door. And so she tries the same approach to sit down and talk with Ramda. She pulls up a chair behind her, and in Romulan says something like, do I have permission to enter into your space? And Ramda says, yes, you can enter. So she goes and sits down in front of her. After that, we're back at the chateau. Jovan comes home with food. He's very happy about it. It's like the smallest sack of food to him. Like, there's 3 people and a dog. Who's going to eat that? So he sits and he's like, hey, I got some bread here. And then all of a sudden, the cartoonish Romulan death squad shows up.
So Jovan drops the piece of fruit or whatever, I believe on purpose.
Oh, you think so? Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, because of their training, he's sitting there holding it, and then he's like, oops, and then the shot's fired when he's bending down to pick it up. I think he dropped it on purpose to know when they were aiming for him. They're about ready to shoot, and he's like, dodge. Because immediately they're like, get down. They're like, Javon was on the verge of...
immediately he mentions something about the alarm. It's pretty cool. I like how they, these are trained Tal Shiar officers. They're like some of the best in the galaxy. They know how to take care of basically, these crappy stormtroopers, and crappy they are because they can't hit anything. They can't do anything effectively.
Old man Picard shoots one from across the room, and he's only trained with stun phasers, and even then he misses half the time. So yeah. So somebody had an interesting theory on Reddit that I'll get into now. Might be a big spoiler, but I mean, it's not really a spoiler because we don't know. Yeah.
That Dr. Jurati is totally a plant.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
And maybe not necessarily a plant, but maybe she is there being strong-armed by Commodore O, or just in full cooperation. Probably being strong-armed, because I think that Jurati, we're going to find out, is working for Commodore O, but reluctantly, and so we don't get a full heel turn. But she is going to compromise them in some way.
Because we didn't see the end of their conversation.
Right, yeah. We don't see any of that.
I told her everything except for one thing. And then later on we find out that one thing is, I'm going with you. Well, she probably told it. She was probably told that one thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's probably some strong arming going on there, because this little bit of writing didn't make a whole ton of sense. I mean, the Romulan Death Squad, them being... like lousy is like, okay, that's sort of standard trope writing. You could pass that off. But then Dr. Jurati shows up to kill the last of them that shows up, and she has a rifle, and I have no idea where she got that rifle from.
Yeah, she probably we're led to believe she picked it up from somebody that fell, but she was out of the room, and the guy walks into the room and gets shot. So they're like, let's set up all these guns on this table over here, and if we run out of ammunition, we'll run back into the other room and grab another gun. And then there's one guy left, and all of a sudden they're all pointing guns at each other, and then the one Romulan gets shot in the back, and then she sits there going, oh, I hope that gun was on stun. And they're like, yeah sweetie.
Romulans
honey, phasers, they don't have stun, and she just drops it immediately.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that somebody mentioned also that there was like a 3-second shot of her. The others were not paying attention to her, and she was still shaking. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't a ruse. And I think that her fear was legitimate. I just think that fear stems maybe more from, I'm in over my head because I'm supposed to be like a secret agent now.
And she's never seen death or anything else like that before.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah, why? Exactly. So, anyways, Dr. Jurati shows up, and at least one of the Romulans is still alive because they tie him up.
I totally thought they were going to die. I thought Joban and what's-her-face was going to just... I was like,
I get the feeling that they're going to make it. I think they're going to be
As soon as this fighting started to happen, I'm like, oh no, this is how they're going to do it. I was afraid for them. But
yeah. They seem to be the things that are grounding Picard. Like, I don't know. I get the feeling that they're going to be fine. I mean, there's that bit in the trailer where 7 of 9 shows up and we're back at the chateau. So I'm not sure his mission out in space is going to last all that long before he comes back. I think he's going to come back and he's going to have another mission to go on to. So who knows? I don't know. Anyways, let me see. Did I miss anything? They removed the helmet on the living one to interrogate him. An interesting little note. Laris makes a note, like she sort of slaps him on the forehead and says, he's a stubborn northerner just like you. Joban, in fact, does have like a ridge thing going on up here. She does not. So interesting that there's a variety of physical differences with Romulans based on their geography. A lot has been made about how the Klingons are presented in Discovery. Well, I think the same could be said about them in terms of, be it the color of their skin or the nature of their ridges on their head.
Agreed. I like that a lot because some people are like, Nero doesn't look very Romulan because the last time we see Romulans, they were in the council meeting and Nemesis, and they look very, very different. So I'm glad that there is some explanation for, we also have the Romulans on the moon, but that's kind of a different story.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. I mean, there was always the thing about how the Klingons looked in the original series. And Worf made a reference to it one time, saying, "Yeah, we don't we don't talk about it as a culture. We don't talk about it."
And then Enterprise went in and explained it.
What's that?
Enterprise explained it.
Yeah, that's right. They did. I don't consider Enterprise canon. It was like a defect or something, right?
No, I thought it was they tried to make Klingons that would fit into Earth. Like they were trying to infiltrate Earth.
They'd infiltrate. And then, okay.
And then they didn't work. It just didn't. Well, you saw them with like the old school devil-looking eyebrows, and it just you're definitely not human. So.
I'll have to go back and watch some of those because some of the stuff they try to jam into canon from Enterprise is just
it's weird.
It's very silly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So then we're back with Soji talking to Ramda, talking about the cards. Ramda says they sort of talk about the idea of mythology, and Ramda says, I don't like that word. She prefers the word news. And Soji's like, wow, I really like that interpretation of it. She wants to help former Borg basically readjust by using a shared narrative framework, which, is a very loose way of saying religion, mythology, what have you. She says, but something as vital as the day's news. So that's as good a way of putting it as any. Ramda then sort of turns her eyes to Soji and says, I remember you from tomorrow. And she mentions are you the living one or the dead one? You are the destroyer. And then Soji's like, listen, you were on the last Romulan ship to get assimilated. Something happened. What was it? Something about the assimilation caused that Borg's cube's submatrix to collapse and separate it from the rest of the collective. What happened? Of course, Ramda's kind of crazy, so she just grabs a gun and starts pointing at her head.
I think the Romulans getting assimilated is the reason why the submatrix collapsed. Mm-hmm. There's something with Romulan makeup, whether it's the theory that they created them or whether it's a theory that there's something in their genetics that they were so paranoid about AI taking over that they programmed something in their DNA to reject all tech something that was there. And this is the interesting theory of, you go back to Origins, it almost seems like it was prophetic of, this AI, these entities, these girls, something was going to come, destroy all Romulans some way, somehow. Whether, like I said, it was AI in general or two individual AIs, however the vision we've seen in Discovery, the vision of the angel, what that ended up being. There's something down the line that will get told to us, or that we'll probably see in a flashback of how these girls came in to be in some sort of prophecy. And then, bam, all of a sudden, it has to do with the Borg, it has to do with the girls, it has to do with reclaimed Romulans. It all is leading to something, and I'm glad we're getting a little bit more into this mythos, because we've seen a lot of Klingons, right? We're humans, we know the Terran culture and everything else like that. It's nice to see Romulans where they kind of came from.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this. The central part of this sequence that's happening here, it's all very intense, and they cut back and forth between this encounter between Soji and Ramda, where Ramda goes crazy calling her the destroyer. She grabs a gun. She puts it to her own head. Soji's able to wrestle it out of her head. Hugh gets pissed off at the idiot guard who came in and didn't like properly lock down his gun. But in the meantime, we cut back to at the Chateau Picard. And they're questioning the Romulan guy. And the only real info he gives up is that the girl is not what you think she is. She is the destroyer. So is she totally like, I don't know, Borg queen of some sort? Borg queen reincarnated, something like that?
I don't think she's a Borg queen incarnate. I think there was, like I said, there was something, which is why they rejected AI. We heard about it, that they were told to reject, and then they said reject it up until something happens. And I think this is their Armageddon. This could be their apocalypse. I mean, the planet was destroyed, yes, but they said, okay, there could be a prophetic sign saying after the planet's destroyed, be careful of the forebears. So there could have been something that said, hey, the planet's going to be destroyed, and then watch out for computers or something weird like that. So they were told to reject computers. So
I have a guess.
This is their Armageddon. I think it's a really good idea. I mean, because every culture seems to have their form of Armageddon. So I like it, personally.
I have an idea. I think that there was some sort of result, some sort of outcome from the Borg Queen trying to F Data in First Contact, and that was used by Maddox to create Dahj and Soji. So she's both Data and the Borg Queen all in one, because that's what she wanted to do anyway. The Borg Queen wanted to hook up with Data in First Contact, and that maybe was accomplished to some degree. Maddox basically finished it up.
I thought the gas, though, destroyed all organic material.
Well, maybe not.
Oh, okay.
They can always
write it.
They can write it out.
Yeah.
It's like wrestling.
No one's really dead.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like with the destruction of Data, they said that only organic material would be destroyed within the explosion. So like Data could still be alive some way somehow.
I mean,
so
it could be.
I agree.
It could be as simple as when Data tried to build his own daughter. What happened? It fell apart. The positronic network just fell apart, and it wasn't until the Borg Queen got a hold of him that they were able to generate some sort of positronic shit in his head that didn't fall apart, and that's what Maddox took and was able to create. I don't know. That's just me spitballing because we're talking about it right now.
Yeah, because we got Borg, we got synths, we got obviously the EMH isn't affected that much, but I still don't understand why would an EMH not hold a positronic net? Why couldn't you put an EMH programming inside a synth of some kind?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still
that was
sort
my
of
only
just
other thought.
Yeah, I'm sort of leaving that one alone a little bit, just because like the EMH is so. I think the thing is Voyager was such a specific thing that maybe there were some safeguards after the fact that, hey, you can't leave these EMHs on too long because they're going to start growing sentience. So maybe there's like an auto off or something. I don't know. I just feel like they treat the EMHs, all the holograms, they treat them like they're a whole lot of nothing. Like they're just basically walking computers, like, the little paperclip guy for Microsoft.
Oh, yeah, Clippy.
And so I'm just assuming that the Doctor was like, because he was on for the entire time, always, his programming developed to the point. But, yeah.
I will say this is another weird, really, really geeky thing. We're talking about synths anyway, and the destruction of... What was the name of the synth that destroyed, or that turned on those people in the second episode?
F8. F8.
But don't say F. Pronounce it.
No, I know. Fate.
Fate.
I know.
Okay.
It's.
You've been reading way too much Reddit. Then I was going to try to surprise you with that.
No, that was like one of the more obvious ones, I think, because it was like, oh, F8, Fate. Okay, he's their fate.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Pretty funny.
So let's see here. Okay. So then Soji goes to her room, calls her super fake mom, asks about Dahj. She's like, oh yeah, she's got a new dog. And then all of a sudden, like, Soji falls asleep.
I'm telling you, the mom can program her. The mom that confirmed it in my opinion.
And I think so. What Kelsey said in our little super kicking it with Kelsey, check it out. What she said in our group chat, I think is probably true. I think her mom is like literally just a piece of programming. I think she calls her on the phone, and then like her programming like has her pop up, and then like she probably just knocks out because like that's the limit of the program.
Yep. Didn't I say that last week?
Did you say that last week?
I said I think her mom's fake.
Okay, good job, Tim. Well then fine. What Tim said last week. I think that's true now.
It's okay.
Good job. Well done. So anyways, Dirty Narek shows up. Soji's like, it's weird. I knew all that shit about the Romulan ship, and I really shouldn't have. She's like, I probably just read it in like a dossier somewhere that a Romulan forgot to censor properly, but I knew that stuff, and I probably shouldn't have. Do you believe me? And then he says, I believe I'm falling in love. I'll be honest with you. I hate storylines when people are able to manipulate other people by saying, I'm in love with you. Because I just think that like they're in a Borg cube. Why does anybody care?
Do you think he's actually falling for her?
No, of course not. Maybe a little bit.
I think part of him, a little bit. Because she's unique, she's different, because a lot of Romulans crave power, and that's kind of what she has. She's this unknown entity, and that she doesn't know what she is, which she mentions to her sister, who's creepily listening to him outside the hallway.
Yeah, so then, we're outside in the hallway. He leaves, And she's like, I can smell that you guys just had sex. You're disgusting. But she's like all close to him. It's got real Game of Thrones.
It's really weird.
They don't need to go there.
She changed her aesthetics back. She was human on Earth, but now she's Romulan. She has her ears back. So.
Yeah, because she didn't like him making fun of her. So anyways, they kind of discuss whatever strategy they have for whatever's going on. She still doesn't like his approach, and he's like, well, your approach isn't any better.
Yeah, because you messed up, not me, so your head's on the line.
Exactly. So then we're back for the final scene. Jurati is telling Picard, I'm gonna go with you, and here's why. I know all about synths, and I really want to see one. I can hold my own because I know a lot about synths, and I don't know. I feel like it was all in this. And Picard was like, "Yeah, you're good. Like you don't have to be basically crying this stuff to me," because she's got like puppy dog eyes, basically. She's really well cast.
The reason why I wanted to join Four Lights is because I'm a giant nerd, and I follow you, and I ask you if I can get you anything.
Right. Exactly. What is that, Tim? All that pestering really paid off.
What can I say?
I was just like, why? This guy really just needs to go and enjoy himself and stop asking me what I need.
I buy you crap, you hawk.
I know. I need to reimburse you for that shirt, by the way. I'm going to.
No. So listen. You just need to send me a regular one. This is
okay. I will do that then. I will do that.
Don't even worry about it.
No, I'm going to. Anyways,
you're sending me a mic. Remember?
Yeah. No. I got to do that too. Although nothing I send you is going to be better than your iPhone mic. That's the best mic we've got.
Then don't worry about it. We're good.
So anyways, then let's see here. I'm coming up. I'm going to hitch a ride. So they beam up. And Picard is very happy because Raffi's there, and she's like, "I'm not joining you. I'm going to Free Cloud for reasons that I don't have to tell you."
She's like, "I'm sitting there with my thumb out. I'm just catching a lift because that's
right,
where you're
exactly." Going. And then she's like, "Who is this person?" Looking at Jurati, and Picard's like, "Oh, she's a leading synth. She's going to help us out." And she's like, "Without a background check." Yeah.
What the heck?
Not a background check. Those words are gonna come back to bite him in the ass. Because Picard's like, yeah, no, I think we're good. We don't need a background check. Yeah, you probably do. And she's probably gonna be like, yep, I'm working for Commodore O, with the sunglasses.
Just call her O. That's
yeah. O. And then they all take
Men in Black, Agent O.
yeah, that's exactly what she looks like. So they take their seats, and then Rio shoots at Picard a look like, hey man, you know what to say. And then Picard's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it here. Engage. And then, like, you see Jurati, and she's marking out. And then it goes over to Raffi, and she literally rolls her eyes. It was good.
And then, so when you see our fearless pilot, you see the interface he's doing. It's all...
Yeah, it's all, yeah.
When have we seen when have we heard reference to a 3D interface?
Oh, you mean a Mass Effect?
No.
Where?
Star Trek. There is the pilot. So God, Nog. Right? Nog is Quark's nephew. Nog is captaining a ship, and he looks over to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Oh, we haven't used 2D touchpads in decades."
Oh,
there's actually reference to a Flash Forward episode. So
okay. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, who makes
super
reference
nerdy?
To that? It makes
the doctor. So the doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. What episode was that?
I have no idea. I just remember seeing a glimpse of it. I'm like,
they're all old and stuff. Yeah, I remember that.
All really old. Because Nog is a captain.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's good. All right, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't know what make the ship is. I don't think it's like an X whatever ship.
I don't know, man, but just the whole episode just screamed Mass Effect to me with the pilot with the 3D and everybody has their backstories of all getting together, and even the ship kind of looks Normandy-esque.
Yeah, it kind of does. And then we finally get the Next Generation theme song.
Oh yeah,
and we get to see the dramatic shot of this shit little ship, warp into space. It's like, well, it's not much, but this is what we got. This is what we're going with here. And that's our episode. So yeah, it's definitely the end of the first act. We're on our way to Free Cloud, and we're going to try to find Bruce Maddox. So we'll see how that works out for them. Anyways, thanks once again, Tim, for joining me. Thanks everybody out there for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. Hit up that Teespring store, get your 4 Lights t-shirt, and thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.